Welcome back to the Jesus culture, Yeshua culture, as I'm recalling it right now, because the term Jesus culture has been, well, it rhymes, it's synonymous, and has been claimed by none other than the Jesus culture music group. Unfortunately, I can't do much when it comes to the algorithm, so just to kind of curb that, I think I'm going to try my best luck changing the name just a little bit, just so that you can find my videos a lot easier. So alright, so I'm going to not react, but I'm going to comment and give you my viewpoints on a video or videos or concepts that have been running around all over social media around the concept of sin. We talked about sin with the other video, the previous video, but we're going to talk about fornication. Apparently, there's this young chap. Is he young? He looks youngish. Doesn't matter. It questions the nature of fornication, whether it is a sin or not. And I'm going to give you my thoughts about some of these things. So I'm just going to go and click on this video by this seemingly progressive, or as they call it, progressive Christian pastor or preacher or whatever. Not sure exactly what he is, but anyway.
The Bible does not condemn premarital sex. Never once.
Really? You don't say. Or do tell.
Now, I know this might be shocking to many of you.
No, it's not really shocking. It's a walk in the park. That's what I call it. It's kind of like I dreamt about this last night. Like an angel came to me while I was sleeping and told me that, no, dude, bro, don't stop depriving yourself, man. It ain't a sin. Okay? It's not shocking to me in any way. I just want to hear his take on it, though. So, alright, let's just go with it.
People assume that what the church teaches, that premarital sex is wrong, is rooted in the Bible. But there's literally not one verse from Genesis to Revelation that condemns premarital sex. There are a number of verses in Old King James Version English where a Greek word, porneia, is translated as fornication, which does mean premarital sex. And that's how the idea that the Bible condemns premarital sex began to be promulgated.
Sorry, man. Yeah, I can kind of already tell where this guy's going with this. He doesn't know what he's talking about. But anyway, we're gonna get into it and break it down properly, man. Alright.
But if you do a brief analysis of the word porneia, you'll find that it does not specifically mean premarital sex. And
yeah. Like premarital sex is a word that was existing in the Bible. Like, yeah, Brandon, yeah, bro. You know, there were certain things like dating, you know what I mean? Like certain words just didn't exist because the concept of the lifestyle that people live today, it was just kind of like bizarre. It was just like out there. You know what I'm saying? Like the concept of two people living together before they're married, it was just kind of like, yo, bro, that was like the worst of debauchery you can think of. Okay, believe it or not, yeah, there was a time. So words evolve. People use different words to describe certain things because words originate from life orientation. But we're gonna get into that. We'll talk about that. I'm gonna just let you lecture me a little bit.
And there are many scholars who will argue it does not refer to premarital sex at all. Here's an article I recommend if you want to learn more about what the word porneia actually means and why fornication is an improper translation.
No kidding. Let's kind of check that out, man. I just like to get to Dr. Bruce Molina.
If you look at the teachings of the Hebrew Bible, for instance, around sex and sexuality, you'll find that the sexual ethics of the Hebrew Bible are ambiguous at best. There are instances of premarital sex that are positive. For instance, when Ruth goes and engages in oral sex on Boaz, that is seen as a good thing, and Ruth later is listed in the genealogy of Jesus. Then we have the story of the Song of Solomon, which has two lovers who may or may not be married.
Sorry. This is hard to listen to Oh God.
Expressing their love for one another and the beauty of their sexual pleasure for one another. These are two positive instances of what is possibly premarital sex in the Hebrew Bible. Now it is true.
Hi, yeah. Let's just get something straight here for a second. Anybody who's watching this video, and I'm like, listen, I'm trying to like be as cleansed as possible. Listen, anybody out there who's not a Christian, who's not rooted in the Bible, they're not unfamiliar with biblical concepts, is watching this guy. They think this guy probably knows what he's talking about, and this guy is really saying like everything and anything that he's saying. There's nothing that is biblically accurate about what he's saying. I love the manipulative subtlety in his word usage, the verbiage that he uses, such as possibly. Oh, possibly. On what measurement of possibility did you use there? A time machine, perhaps, that you traveled back through time? My God, did he just say Ruth performed oral? Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, but I'm just gonna keep playing.
It's true that when we get to the New Testament, we see the writings of the Apostle Paul being influenced by Stoicism and Hellenistic Judaism, which rebelled against human bodies.
I don't think anybody knows what you're talking about there, bro. I know what you're talking about, but I know what you're talking about. But I don't think most people kind of know what you mean. Hellenistic. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Let's get back to it here. Oh.
And Hellenistic Judaism, which
Ooh, key.
Which rebelled against human bodies and pleasure and the pursuit of sexuality. And so we see the influence of Greek philosophy on the teachings of the Apostle Paul, who begins to be very negative towards sex and sexuality.
Is that historically accurate, bro? Or are you just assuming that? Unless you had a conversation with Paul, you know, you might want to kind of level things up with us. Listen, I'm trying to be as objective as possible here. I mean, I'm a virgin, you know, I mean, I'd like to get it on. Like, yeah, why am I abstaining from this, okay? I got nothing to gain from this, like, seriously. I'd love to just get it on, bro, okay? I mean, I love me some ladies who like me, okay? Ladies love this brother, trust me. But, if this was true, I know it's not, you know, I'd be more than happy to embrace that. But I don't think that's accurate. That's really not accurate at all. There's nothing that I've heard that is really accurate at all. But let's just keep on watching and find out. Maybe this is leading to somewhere. Maybe it's one of those videos where the dude is gonna be like, ha, side. I was just kidding. I don't know. I'm just saying.
In general, and he even says he wishes everyone would be celibate just like he is. So if there's not a single instance in the entirety of the Bible that condemns premarital sex, how does the church arrive at the belief that it's sinful? Well, that, again, is from the influence of external philosophies influencing Christianity. And we really see that belief get codified in the first few centuries of Christianity as Christians are rebelling against the Roman culture that is oppressing them. They begin to see everything that the Roman culture is doing as sinful and wrong, and they begin to see the sexual excesses of the Roman culture as something that Christians should not.
I'd love to hear the receipts that this dude is coming with here, because it's really difficult to kind of like say, no, that's not true. Because there's just really nothing that he's talking about that he is really providing, because what he's saying is also not true, because Christianity didn't begin during the Roman Catholic Empire, or, you know, when Paul wrote to the church in Rome. That was not the dawning and beginning of Christianity or Christian teachings. And fornication is not a Christian concept. It's a concept that we understand as a Christian community, but before believers were even called Christians, we have to trace it all the way back to Old Testament just to understand what are we actually talking about here. I feel like I don't really want to finish what this guy is talking about, because it's really hard to finish up.
Be doing, and therefore they develop a very rigid sexual ethic. It's not my job to tell you what is a proper sexual ethic for you. I believe this is something we all need to wrestle with.
No. It is your job. It is your job. You can't say all that nonsense and you say it's not your job. It is your job, man. You can't lie to people like that and you say it's not my job. But you just told us. You just spent half the entire 2 minutes 44 seconds, man. You've been telling people the ethics of sexuality. What are you talking about? It's not your job. You made it your job, bro. You got how many followers or subscribers? I don't know, man. Bunch of weirdos.
Scripture, wrestle with our connection to God, and wrestle with our own inner morality and determine what is good for us.
But inner morality. Oh my goodness gracious, that sounds very familiar. Hey, didn't we just make a video where a certain soul sister was responding and talking about a certain philosophy called meism, that there is no such thing as sin. Sin is what you determine. It is subjective to you as a person. No, your own sense of inner morality. Okay, so basically we determine what morality is, in other words. It's interesting how all this very progressive, woke-ish, I don't understand what goes on with this guy. You know, with this very kind of new age thinking, you know, woke kind of thinking, that how it's being woven into theology, or they sort of take it into the, you know, they take the idea of God and they try to fit God into their own precepts. It's really interesting and how manipulative it is, their thinking. But I just want to focus on the fornication aspect here for a second, all right? Okay, what's this dude just say? It's not his job to determine the moral ethics of anything.
I will say that we must stop making the claim that the Bible is clear and premarital sex is a sin, because it's not.
Yeah, it is.
The Bible does.
Yeah, it does. I think I'm gonna stop by
not
there.
condemn
Okay. No, okay, right. I get you, man. I got you. We got you. It does. Condemn it. Okay, so here's the thing that happens for those who are interested in studying. So what this dude has done is just kind of like, I mean, you know, there's plenty of scriptures you can get into. You can look at different verses that talk about fornication. For out of the heart comes evil thoughts, murders, adulteries, fornications. You know, do you not know that the unrighteous do not inherit the kingdom of God? Do not deceive, neither fornicators, idolaters. Fornication is right there. Fornication is right there. Okay, so now the issue is, it doesn't really help right now to kind of like cite every verse that brings about the word fornication. The issue is, he says it's a mistranslation, and when you say something is a mistranslation, you're saying that it's translated incorrectly. So then how do we correctly translate the word? You see, we went all the way back to like 11th centuries, or, you know, King James Bible or anything. Let's just keep in mind here, we're talking about the English, okay? They were using whatever they understood, but understood from what? So we've got Greek and we've got Hebrew that we can go back and look into, because this is not the 1100s anymore. We're still here right now. And English isn't the only means to understand this. You got to understand something here. We understand the Bible in different ways. There's the wide array of cultures. It's not as though the King James Bible is the sole keeper. It's not as though the Catholic Church and the English, medieval English or Elizabethan English or whatever, or the King's language is the custodian of interpretation. The Christian faith spread across different cultures and customs. Okay, so these linguistics all relate, they all correlate to the same understanding. It's not just English, it's multiple. But when you hear an English dude like that come out here and he tries to play around with his words, playing with just one specific language, without understanding how language is formulated, etymology of words, and why words are formulated the way that they're formulated, especially when it comes to Hebrew, all right? You don't just mess around with words. Words have meaning, words have, there's a thinking behind that. So let's go back into porneia, as it says, because if you go back all the way to Hebrew, you go all the way to Greek. Greek is transliteration. Transliteration basically is the process of changing the way you pronounce a word to suit the way certain speakers of that language pronounce words. We don't all have the same tongue, basically, all right? So porneia, meaning fornication, sexual immorality, illicit. Sexual immorality. We're talking about something that is moral, but it is sexual in nature. What makes it immoral is the nature of expression. So how do you understand the nature of the expression? There has to be grounds of expression. Okay, this is illicit sexual issue. So fornication, right? So Now, never mind. Let's get out of the idea of the English language and say, fine, maybe they have limited understanding about who can have sex with who. I'm not sure how he rationalizes that, but I'm pretty sure that even English speakers pretty much know what marriage is, and what a single person is, and what sex outside of marriage is. So if the definition of the word that they use there is fornication, because they understand what's being expressed, I'm not sure what the mistranslation is there. All right, let's go back to then the Hebrew and the origin of the word, because the transliteration of that is zana. Zana meaning to commit fornicate, to have sexual relations. Remember, we already adopted the word fornication to mean sex with a specific individual. All right, so it means to perform sexual activities. To commit adultery. What is adultery? Adultery is a state of condition, not necessarily a sin. State of condition describing a person in a state whereby they are separated from God. God used the word adultery to describe Israel. Why? Because there was a time and point where they were separated from him by doing everything that is outside God's laws. Idolatry. He called them a nation of harlotry. He called them adulterous because it's a nation that he binded himself with, had a contract with, a covenant with. Okay. Another instance where we use that kind of description is marriage. Paul also used the description, or rather the idea of marriage to describe a relationship where two parties are joined together. Okay. It forms a unit. A union, a holy union that is separate from every other kind of union. You don't just join yourself with anyone. There's a reason, there's a specific reason why in Israel or in various cultures, even some of our cultures in Africa, marriage, the seal of marriage was symbolized by when a man and woman join themselves together and they have sexual relations. That is seen as the seal that seals the deal, if you know what I mean, okay? Without that, you haven't sealed the deal, really. And that's the reason why when two individuals, when a man and a woman join themselves together, they will be declared man and wife, because it is held that sacred. It is a very sacred activity that you have to understand. It's not something that you just do with anybody. You can't just do that. That's because we live in a crazy time where people are loose. Doesn't mean that, hey, it is what it is. It wasn't always like that, okay? There was a time when people had a good sense of a moral compass. So now let's get deep into this wording again. Sexual purity. Okay, so there's an understanding, an idea of sexual purity. Sexual intercourse in general, adultery, unchastity, sexual intercourse, okay? Unchastity, incest, surrendering or selling off of something. So I lost my trail of thought there. So anyway, so sexual purity and whoredom. Whoredom, we understand. These are some harsh words, man. Bible's got some really harsh words. Whoredom, prostitution, in other words. So in Hebrew, zana meant to commit fornication, committing adultery, being a harlot, a prostitute. Prostitution, back in those days, you have to understand something. The grounds by which you express your sexuality with someone as a means of exchange, whereby there's an exchange of services. Goodness gracious. Ooh. For an individual to have sexual relations with another female who is not their wife, it was expressed for a female to do that. She will be seen as a prostitute or a harlot. Okay? So that would be the only means by which people just do that. All right? Because it is outside of the scope of God's law, God's lawful covenant between a man and a wife. Sex is not something that people just do. It's not. It's never been. All right? Before we even get to sexual, this conversation around sexuality and so forth. So I'm trying to get you to understand that there's an orientation behind words. So just because some dude thinks that the word has a lot of other different meanings, meaning other things which he didn't really get into, he didn't get deep into, it doesn't necessarily mean that it removes the aspect of fornication, meaning sex outside of marriage. It's outside of marriage, meaning that fornication is the sin. Even when you talk about adultery, fornication is a sin, not adultery. A man having sexual relations with another woman other than his wife, that is the sin. So in a case where there is no sexuality involved and you are adulterating a relationship with God, just like me as a single person, because God called Israel a nation of adultery, adulterous, an adulterous nation. He didn't say you went and had sex with other people. No. Okay? They corrupted a specific covenant relationship that they had with God. You are a holy nation, a nation that he married. Okay, so Israel was kind of like his bride to marry, would be to marry, man. You guys know what marriage is. So that's where the word comes from. Okay, yes, we have the root of that word. There is prostitution involved. There is certain expressions that are known to be outside of the proper expressions of where one should be, where people should be having sexual relations. That is the background. But you cannot then come back here and say, no, that word is not talking about sex outside of marriage. Oh, what was sex outside of marriage in those days? What was sex outside of marriage in AD 100 or something? Okay, or before the time of Jesus in the Old Testament. Okay, there was a time when people had a sane way of thinking, unlike today. All right. So what Brandon is doing basically is poor thinking that basically adopts a philosophical way of thinking where he goes into this idea of translations and Greek words, and he pulls in couple bits and pieces of words without understanding what he's actually really saying, the meaning of words and why those words mean what they mean. For instance, the history of where words come from. All right. So what he basically did is, let's say the word salt, for instance. Did you know that Roman soldiers used to be paid? They were compensated with salt because salt was such a precious source of reward in those days. That is why Jesus said, "You are the salt of the earth," because salt was very precious. So Roman soldiers would be rewarded using the word sorry, not the word. They would be rewarded with salt, would paid with salt instead of money. Their monthly allowance was called salarium. So sal meaning, comes from the word salt, the Latin word of salt. And this Latin root can be recognized in the French word salary. Okay, I don't speak French, man. It's salarié or whatever. All right. So it eventually made it into the English language, and that's how English words are formulated, people. Okay, made it into the English language as the word salary. So that's where the word salary comes from. So you can't come here and say, no, man, okay, salary doesn't refer to money. It's referring to salt. That's what that dude just did. To somebody who doesn't know theology, somebody who has no idea what they're talking about. They have no idea. They don't have any basic understanding of theology. Or they don't study the Bible, they don't understand how these things work. They probably might be convinced by that. So that dude is a walking, talking demon. I'm trying to be nice, people. I'm trying to be nice, all right? So no, he's absolutely wrong. There's nothing accurate that he's talking about. He does not know his story. Don't listen to that goofball, man. All right? He's crazy. Anyway. And that's why he's wrong. And that's why I'm telling you right now. Don't listen to that nonsense, all right? With that said, sex outside of marriage is a sin. Heck, you have to be pretty blind not to even see what happens in this world when people simply just express their sexuality recklessly with whoever. Like, really, guys? Like, seriously? Come on. Man, get the heck out of here. All right? All right, that's what I've got for you right now. I've exhausted myself. Hope you enjoyed that. Do leave a like, do leave a comment, and do spread the word out there, and give the video to other people who are probably confused about this type of a thing, or whatever the case may be. All right, this is the Yeshua culture, and this is how we roll.